All right, well, welcome back. And now we're going to talk with Sheila and we're going to talk about IBM software, specifically the Cognos product line. So, what can you tell us? Where do we need to start to have this discussion?
Well, we'll talk about business intelligence. Business intelligence for the business. A lot of people think of that as dashboarding, right? You have your graphics, you take your data, you have a data scientist, a modeler, and then they create different models, and they also create a dashboard to show an intuitive graphic to the business user. There's a lot of people involved, and a lot of people doing data collection, data mining, like I said, creating models. And then from that, be able to tell a story to the business. The nice thing about IBM products is that you don't necessarily need all of those different roles to create business intelligence and to do predictive and prescriptive analytics, which is nice for the person who's in a business, maybe a smaller business who can't afford those different roles and trying to convey their meaning and what they want to gain from their end result to that scientist.
All right, so you shared some slides with me earlier, and I think this transitions over nice when we talk about, you're starting to talk about what users need, and then of course the challenge is that, well, where are we now?
Right. And as everyone knows, most end users and business needs are they want the data available for analysis and they want accurate data. They also want their line of business to be agile, to be able to respond to the market. They also want to be able to make strategic decisions linked to execution. However, what we usually see is that they have antiquated and disparate systems and they're separated. They have an incomplete data picture. They don't necessarily know what data they need to get their end result. They have an over-reliance on an IT department. They may be a smaller business or they need to respond to market so quickly that they don't need to have to go through all those hoops to get to the answer. And then they have an inability to quickly read changes in the markets. And that's what we'll introduce with the next slide is the products that are available at IBM give you, not only do they allow you to do data collection and data mining quickly, but they also have what's called AutoAI. And what that means is it has CPlex built in, which is a decision optimization tool that will do forecasting. So not only will it present that graph for you, but it will also produce a trend in what future sales would look like. The average dashboard that you look at can tell you, year over year, I had this gross profit margin, but it won't necessarily what your gross profit margin will be next year. With CPlex and AutoAI, it can do that for you. There's 3 products that are in the IBM mix that include this tool. There's Planning Analytics, which is for doing budgeting and planning and forecasting. It's part of the old TM1 model. We also have IBM Cognos Analytics. That's a reporting tool, can pull together all of your data sources and bring up correlations between your data, as well as doing those graphics and dashboards and also predictability. It has those built in and forecasting. Another thing that's built into Cognos Analytics is a chatbot. A lot of people have referred to it in the past as Watson. Watson Assistant and Watson Discovery is in Cognos Analytics. So you can actually tell them what you want it to do and it will come back with an answer. Then we have Cognos Controller. That's for finance, to keep your acquisitions and your finances in a comprehensive form and be able to do some forecasting for you there.
And that actually, I think use cases are the next thing we're going to talk about. Actually, there's a nice little summary slide here. You talked a little bit about the embedded AI, the built-in AI, and you really called out the important things, the whole idea that it's going to surface that information. Because one of the things that we've learned over the time that even if you actually have a data scientist, if they don't either aren't working with a business analyst who understands the business of what the data means, they either need to learn the business or they need a business analyst. So either I need a really, really smart data scientist who understands my business, or I need them and that business analyst who knows what important data is. So the fact that I've got tools that's going to help me look at those trends, bring those to my attention. Still, I'm going to make some decisions about what I want to look at in more detail, but at least I'm going to have some idea of what I'm looking at, or more importantly, what I should be looking at.
You're correct, and you need to, like you said, bridge that gap between a data scientist who may not know the business with the business analyst who knows the business well, but might not know how to write models. And what's nice and intuitive about the IBM products is you don't have to be that data scientist, or you don't necessarily have to be that business person. The data tells you and draws insights from the data. You can go in with a preconceived notion, but a lot of times we have bias when we build a model that, well, we have a theory and we try to make the model fit the theory instead of having the data tell you what the theory should be. And also, even if you build an effective model, models over time have drift. And in order to assess that drift, you really should be assessing your models at all time. And like you said, you'd have to have that personnel on board, be constantly, and look at the lead time that you would need to make the adjustment. Whereas you could respond to market so much quicker if you had something that was AutoAI. It can come back and tell you, to respond to the market in real time.
Data's got an expiration date, so we need to adjust for that. And what you just brought up too is the model that I used 2 years ago isn't the model I should be using today, isn't the model I should be using a year from now.
Correct. And also, you won't be spending 80% of your time doing data collection and data mining. You can use your skill set to do those, make more decisions on a real-time basis.
So from a use case standpoint, I know with our event here today, we're talking a little bit about finance. Some of the common things I hear about when we look at AI in finance is doing things like validation on loans and those kind of things, trying to make those decisions. What's the risk benefit of those kind of things? So this is a very common one. Some of the things you talked about, sales forecasting, those kind of things, very, very common use cases. Hits a lot of people, even if they don't think that they're in a sales position. Everybody's in sales. Planning, operations, supply chain, boy, seems like it would be nice if we had some good supply chain tools over the last couple of years, wouldn't it? And then, IT, HR, I'm sure there's a lot of other applications as well. And I got to imagine that, somebody's using an AI somewhere to help come up with new use cases.
Oh, yes. For headcount, as you said, for your sales force or your, human resource team, as well as IT, it could help you do that predictability that you don't have currently in today's market.
All right. And who's bringing it to us other than IBM?
And CPlex is, like I said, is one of the leading tools that IBM has incorporated into almost all their products to do that predictability, no matter what application you decide to invest in.
Well, this is one of the most direct applications we've seen in terms of intelligence so far. Thank you very much for your time, Sheila.
Thank you, Andy, for having me. Thank you.